When something is anonymous, it means that the identity has not been revealed or has been withheld. In Swift, this anonymity exists too, using a technique called closures. And developers can access these anonymous snippets of code to use in their programs. In this video, you'll learn about closures and how they can be used to provide data encapsulation where the implementation of the code is kept hidden. You will learn how to define closures and pass them as a function argument. Finally, you will learn about sorting arrays using a closure. Closures are a self-contained block of functionality that can be passed around and used in your code. Recall learning about functions? Well, functions are actually special cases of closures. You can think of closure expressions as a piece of code that can be sorted in a variable. That variable can then be passed around the program and executed where needed. Recall that a function consists of a declaration using the keyword func followed by the function name, then arguments list, and a return type. Then the code to be executed in a pair of curly brackets. Well, a closure is similar, except it begins with the open curly bracket, then the argument list followed by the return type with the keyword in. Finally, the code block to be executed is inside a set of curly brackets. Notice that the closure does not have a name. It's because of this that they are said to be anonymous. Okay, so now you know what a closure is. Why would you want to use it in your code? Well, closures allow you to write flexible and dynamic code that is easy to read and interpret. What does this mean? Well, to answer this question, let's create a closure to explore how it can be used to output some text to the screen. First, create a variable named myClosure and assign it to the closure syntax. In this example, the closure will take no input and return no value. Then, in the body of the code, you can run a print function to output some text like myFirstClosure. To execute the closure, you call the variable name followed by the open and close parenthesis. Similar to functions, you can pass values to closures in the form of arguments. For example, suppose you need a closure to accept an argument in the form of a string. Once again, the closure will not return anything. It will just print the value of the string passed to it. You can also return values. For example, suppose you want to return the maximum value between two numbers. First, you create a closure that takes two parameters, num1 and num2, which are both integers. Then you also specify the return type as an int. Next, you can use the return statement to execute something known as a ternary operator. This is very similar to how the conditional if statement works. You first have a condition, for example, num1 is greater than num2. Then you have the question mark symbol and the two parameter names separated by the colon symbol. If the statement is true, the parameter to the left will be returned. If false, the parameter on the right will be returned. You can basically think of the ternary operator as writing an if-else statement on one line. In this example, the print function is calling the closures and passing two arguments in the form of the values 1 and 6. When these values are passed into the function, the ternary operator checks if 6 is greater than 1, and because it is, the value of num1 is returned. Likewise, you may recall passing values to a function in the form of arguments. Well, because you can store closures and variables, you can then pass this variable and its associated functionality as a function parameter. And a good example of this is the built-in sorted function. This can accept a function or a closure to determine how the sort should work. In the next video, you will explore this in a little more detail by analysing an example on sorting arrays.